Do you know why in Soviet times housing was built for people with very low ceilings? To save money, right? Yeah, especially the Khrushchevkas. And you know, the height that was chosen, how much was it? 3 meters, right? 2.75? 2.75. Even 2.50, right? It's a depressing thing for people's consciousness. It suppresses a person's development, suppresses their willpower, and so on. Didn't you know that? Well, those who built these houses knew this perfectly well. Nowadays, there are plenty of programs showing that during Stalin's time, all the buildings from the Stalin era were built according to magical laws. You've read and heard about this, right? Also by accident. Nothing is accidental.
Of course, the surrounding space and the environment affect a person. They deeply influence their physical state, their psyche, and naturally their energy as well. In the Indian tradition, there are the Vastu Shastras, that is, entire systems of knowledge, scriptures about how to do all this correctly, according to which principles. And yes, that is completely and absolutely correct. Stalinist buildings are mysterious occult structures because Stalin himself was an occultist, and he possessed this deep esoteric knowledge. He was taught by specialists. And there is a very clear information that he was not the only one being taught during that period, these specialists. But that's a slightly different topic. Furthermore, there is a historical explanation for why, in the past, houses and buildings in general were constructed using the cubit as a unit of measurement. That is, it's not because people couldn't invent some common unit of measurement or simply couldn't invent the meter. No, that's not it. These are also wave processes, and these wave processes fit into the geometry of the builder's physical body, who is building a house for himself. And here is exactly where the nuance begins. For some people, 2.5 meters is perfectly sufficient. But for others, that is simply not the case at all. It would just feel like being trapped in a cage and would heavily suppress them. To say that the whole country was meant to be suppressed, well, then who exactly am I in relation to the rest of the country? If you build like that, you'll just end up with a crowd of suppressed people, and that's not acceptable. So it's not also straightforward, but at the same time, yes, that's absolutely right. The space has a very strong influence, especially temple complexes. There's an entire science behind how they are constructed. It hasn't disappeared, it still exists in ancient texts, and all of this is present in Vedic culture. But there are so many nuances, so many particularities, that you can't just name a single number and expect it to work the same for everyone. For each person, that number will have a completely different effect. No, these are wave processes. They are tied to geometry, to the dimensions of the physical body.
Because when the ceilings are high, they allow a person to develop more quickly. It doesn't suppress their personality, it doesn't suppress their will. And our ancestors knew that to avoid cockroaches, mice, and so on, they built in such a way that a superposition of fields was created, dark matter, primary matter, so that at floor level there was an incompatibility for mice, cockroaches, and everything else. They were simply free from all that, simply because of their knowledge of the laws of nature, knowledge that modern science doesn't even suspect exists, and many other things as well. So they were destroying us not only physically, but also in this way, driving us into cramped spaces where, so to speak, this pressure was present. And on top of that, reinforced concrete. That's like a lid without a cover. So literally everything was working completely toward destroying us.
Of course. World War II didn't finish the job, so reinforced concrete had to do it. It's not all that clear-cut, but that's exactly what Levashov is about. I mean, on the one hand, yes, he touches on an interesting topic, but on the other hand, well, yes, these are numbers. Yes, it's possible to calculate all this. Yes, it's possible to design the right kind of space. No, there's nothing practical in his stories. And again, this attitude of scaring everyone, of killing everyone, it's complete nonsense. There are a huge number of forces in our world. There are forces, yes, that strive to bring chaos and destruction, but there are also forces that strive for development and evolution. And these forces are perfectly balanced and stable. And they are perpetually in a state of dynamic motion with each other. And a person's life is not solely or directly dependent upon the specific room they are in. It does not depend on someone else's wishes. A person's life, their vitality, depends on their interaction with their own soul. There are no rooms involved there. There are no Stalin-era or Khrushchev-era apartments there. It's all inside your own body. And if you are in harmony with your soul, everything will be fine. Absolutely no one will be able to take your life, not with reinforced concrete, not with a Khrushchevka, nor with any other weapon you can think of. This is the main causality. Life or death depends on how much access you have to this resource. This essential resource is what we call vitality. Everything else is just a byproduct of all these processes. If you lack vitality, reality will find a way to bury you. If you are vital, nothing can be done to you. There simply isn't, and it's impossible to do anything to you. You will survive and get out of anything. Now, regarding superposition fields and how it's possible to create a space, let's say, unfit for life. Yes, that also happens. Living water, dead water in energetics. I have shown energies that have the properties of dead water. I have shown energies that have the properties of living water. All of this is manifested on different levels. Naturally, all of this also exists in the physical space. Again, the Egyptian pyramids, ancient temple complexes, where the geometry of the space is constructed correctly, which refracts the energies that move there. These energies must move. It is not just some arbitrary location in deep space. These are distinctly active regions where it is entirely possible to successfully establish this specific geometry. If the zone is not active, no matter how you arrange the geometry there, it won't do any good. It's the same as assembling a computer from the best parts but forgetting to plug it into the socket. It won't work. It is essentially the same. If you just think about building houses in a city, obviously some will end up in active spots and some won't. The Stalin-era buildings were constructed wisely. First, they would locate an active spot, then carefully construct the proper geometry of the space, and naturally, these buildings have a positive effect on the people inside. All of this really does exist. That's how it is. But they really try to scare you, saying that if you live in a Khrushchevka, that's it, you're doomed, and if your building is made of reinforced concrete, well, that's the end. No, that's simply not the case. These factors are not absolutely essential for a person with an exceptionally high level of vitality. And the fact that you can configure the space, this involves the unintentional destruction of various forms of small living beings, an action performed on a consistent and daily basis by the dedicated individuals and practitioners who open and close truly functioning temples. That is to say, whenever a temple is closed, the presiding headmaster, along with the resident monk, must carefully attend to it. The person responsible for this knows the ritual. He performs a special ritual and fills the space with the energies of death. If a living person enters a closed temple, they will come under the influence of these energies and will also begin to die actively. When the temple is opened, naturally, another ritual is performed to open the temple, and these energies dissipate and are removed from the premises. So this is done not only through geometry, but also with special rituals. And these rituals are mandatory, at least in my tradition, in the temples where I have practiced myself. So when the temple is closed, everyone knows that the energies of death have now been released there. And only those who possess these special rituals can open it, can enter there. This also takes place. And this is no longer about geometry, this is about the skills of the person themselves. So once again, I'll say it. It's true, it does happen. But that's only part of the truth. And Levashov, in all his glory, shared a lot of interesting things, but he didn't say how it's actually done.
If you were constructing your own house right now, would you strictly adhere to any particular rules, or would you still choose to ignore them?
Well, I would definitely follow whatever was realistically possible to follow. Of course, the house would be built according to the cardinal directions. I would still try to move away from the metric system and measure lengths by the distance from the tip of my finger to my elbow. My own elbow, because it's my house. And this house wouldn't suit another person with a different body geometry.
But what if 2 or 3 people live in this house, or if there are children?
A family is a single organism. So if a person builds their family according to the timeless and sacred Vedic principles, there is no problem at all because they are already naturally integrated and aligned with one another. However, if a person constructs something entirely different based on other ideas and simply calls it a family without that foundation, well, there could inevitably be various problems and challenges that arise, of course. In most cases in the modern world, people call anything at all a family. Just because you had sex once, that doesn't mean you have a family. No, you never had a family. Relax. A family is a set of rules. If you follow those rules, yes, you have a family. If you don't follow those rules, you might have anything, but it's not a family. It's the same as these Western trends. Oh, am I a kitty there? No, you're not a kitty, you're just a person who's lost their mind, plain and simple. Old people are running around saying, I'm a kitty, I'm a horse, I'm actually a boy, I'm a girl, I'm neither a boy nor a girl. We can all indulge in this nonsense, but the cold reality is often quite harsh. And so, when 2 people simply choose to call just anything a family, that doesn't actually make them a family. It only serves to mislead and confuse them even more than before. It's the same as in religion. For example, there are people who wear a cross around their neck and say they're Christians, but do you follow the commandments since you say you're a Christian? Which commandments are those? He doesn't even know what they are. A Christian follows the commandments, someone who lives by them.
Same for families, yes. Follow rules.
You can.
Sure.
When you just hang a cross around your neck, that doesn't make you a Christian. It's the same in a family. Just because you go around telling everyone that you're a family doesn't mean you actually are one. It just means you're saying it, that's all. A family, I'll say it again, is a clear set of rules. All the roles are defined. Who is responsible for what? Who does what? Who answers to whom? Under what circumstances they obey or don't obey? Yes, a woman submits to a man under certain conditions. Yes, a man submits to a woman under other conditions. These conditions do not overlap. Yes, the man is the provider. Yes, a man should support his entire family. But he should not experience financial strain while supporting his family. If he cannot support his family, if he has no finances, then he is not a man, he is still a boy, and he should not have a family. There are a lot of different nuances. It's the same for women. Let's not go into details right now, but that doesn't mean that if a man supports his family, that's all there is to it in the family. No, there are also many functions for the woman. There are things she truly must do, things she is responsible for. And if she is unable to fulfill these responsibilities, there are very real consequences, so to speak. Well, naturally, in this day and age, all of this is already gone. These days, almost no one does this anymore. People simply live their daily lives together. People are involved in many different types of relationships. But it's not family relationships, only relationships.
And
As it is correctly stated in our legislation, the union happening between people now is a formal marriage. It's marriage, but it's not a family.
people can set their own rules that are acceptable to them, can't they? No.
They can't.
That's different?
No, they can't. Well, look, you come to work, I hire you as a specialist in video camera equipment. For filming, for example, there's a filming specialist. You come in and say, oh, listen, how about I do something else here instead? I'd rather clean the floors. But the floors are clean, I need a cameraman. He says, no, I'll be the cameraman later. Floors. Well, fine. If you don't want the floors, I can just sit on the couch. I say, no, I don't need an employee like that. So it just won't work. If you enter a family, it's clearly defined what a family is. If you join a family and start doing things your own way, then you won't have a family. You'll have anything but a family. That's clear. Those are the rules of the game. These are the fundamental rules of the game for the fragments of consciousness that have arrived here. A fragment of consciousness says, I want a clan, a woman, a child, and for everything to be truly awesome, for it to really feel great. The Creator says, this is how it's done. No, I'll do everything my own way. And in the end, you get who knows what. How come? I wanted a family, but I ended up with who knows what. Do you even know any of the rules? Do you even know how this is built? Do you know the rules of these games called family? Do you know your role, your responsibility? Do you know the role of a wife, her responsibility? Do you know how to raise children? Do you know how to build a relationship with your wife? Not just a relationship, but with your wife. You don't know a damn thing. That's why you can't have a family. It's the same as if you came to work as a camera operator, but you picked up a camera for the first time in your life. You're not a worker. The most you can do is learn, and that's it.
And,
no one is going to pay you for that, that's for sure.
well, I want to sum up and say that there are rules for everything, whether it's about constructing buildings, about family, or anything else.
And
these rules are eternal.
They
were established, and they stay exactly the same?
They exist at this particular point in time and space. In the Kali Yuga, there are other eras, there are other points in space, there are worlds where physical matter doesn't exist at all. I've shown at least 7 distinct dimensions of existence. You can refer to them by whatever name you prefer, that are entirely separate and different from one another. But we now have the extraordinary opportunity and access to explore these profound spaces, just to spend some time there, to study them. They're called gates. All of this is covered in the practical energy course. So no, it's, well, like the laws of physics. We have the laws of physics. We don't invent them. We discover and study them. Family is like a law of physics. You can't just make it up. You can only comprehend it and do everything right and get an excellent result. Or you can do your own thing, but the result will be so-so. It's the same thing. Don't want to follow these rules? Then don't, that's fine. You can even become a monk if you want. So there's no obligation to follow this. There's no strict requirement forcing you to follow it. This is what you need to understand what I'm saying out loud right now. In other words, no one is forcing you to live this way. But if you want a guaranteed result, then you have to follow the rules. If you don't follow the rules, no one can guarantee you any result. At the same time, live however you want.
Well, does it really matter if it's called family or a relationship as long as the person is happy in it?
Well, what's the difference in the title, IT specialist or McDonald's cleaner? What difference does it make? The difference is when you say you're an IT specialist, I see someone with money, a cheap mortgage, and lots of benefits. When you say you're a McDonald's cleaner, you're probably lying because there's no McDonald's here. That's the difference. A huge difference. But at the same time, you can live however you want. But then again, there are no guarantees at all. You can meet someone special, start a meaningful relationship with them, agree on whatever terms you both want, and simply hope that everything works out for you. But there are statistics, harsh, cruel, and stubborn, showing that in some regions of our country, there are more divorces than marriages. That's the harsh reality of the statistics. This is what self-initiative is leading to now. These are the kinds of people who are now experts at building relationships by their own rules.
These rules that houses are built by... do you possess all this knowledge?
Well, partially, yes.
Partially, yes. Do you share this knowledge anywhere?
No, I haven't built my own house for practice yet. Once I finish building my own house for practice, then I'll be able to say, guys, look at what I have achieved.
And what exactly will this new construction project be for? Is it to make the practices better and more effective?
To create the most comfortable, perfectly suited and supportive space for yourself in this reality, so that the practices proceed much more smoothly, more effectively, and with higher quality. That's what every single part of this is for. And
is there actually a difference in where you practice, in what kind of rooms? Right now, we're sitting in a room with a high ceiling. Would it work better here than if we were sitting over there where the ceilings are 2.5 meters high?
It's better to practice certain practices, but if, for example, you and I were doing mantras, then I would feel perfectly comfortable even in dolmens, practicing mantras or humming sounds. By the way, a dolmen functions incredibly effectively with reflected sound waves. I have had quite a bit of personal experience with that. I just tried it out thinking, what would it be like to chant mantras here? Wow, it really works. So it's not also straightforward here either, but it's definitely better to live with a high ceiling.
And in the video, he also says that our ancestors knew all these secrets, how all this is done. And well, as I understood it, most people used to do just that, right? They followed these rules. Why have people stopped doing this now?
The era has changed.
The era has changed.
We have 4 eras. Satya, Dvapara, Treta, and Kali.
In
different eras, people have different levels of self-awareness. For example, in the Satya era, Satya Yuga, a person could literally walk to visit God. Just like that, to chat about this and that. Right now we have a whole conference here for the whole planet. Do gods exist or not? This is the era of Kaliya. There they simply went visiting. Hello Shiva. Hello Parvati. My respects. Now it's probably a fairy tale. No, this is not a fairy tale. Where are their buns?
That is
an entirely different and elevated level of human consciousness. Yes, we pull ourselves up with technology. We actively transform the harsh material world so that we at least have a genuine possibility to live, to somehow compensate for this constant fading of consciousness. We are constantly trying to substitute our own consciousness, our own mind, our natural abilities with technology, because our abilities are getting less and less, and technology replaces them. And it seems, well, it doesn't seem bad, it kind of balances out. Naturally, when people lived in another era, they didn't even need to know this, they didn't see it this way. They truly felt it. For them, it was self-evident. Just like now you feel if it's cool or warm, that's how they felt it. Did you cut it off like that? No, it's not harmonious, it doesn't resonate. That's how you cut it off, and it just rolls in. So you arrange the space simply by using your extrasensory perception.
It was all obvious.
Yes, you just let it pass through you and immediately, intuitively understand what's right and what's wrong. This kind of slope, that kind of slope, or maybe it's better to make a dome at all. So for you, these things are readily available right at your very fingertips. You are fully and deeply aware of them. Now, other people seem to be just like unmoving logs. We see nothing, we hear nothing. I suggest people develop their extrasensory abilities before they completely atrophy. Some people hear, some listen, some develop, and then there are those who are like, oh my God, wow, the world turns out to be so multifaceted. And some people just keep arguing in chats about whether God exists or not.
Friends, write what you think about this. And if you want to learn more about the practices that Anton offers, you can check them out by following the link below this video.
95% of people don't even realize that within them lies a power that grants access to any possibility, a successful business, strong relationships, health, and self-fulfillment. It allows you to hear your soul and remember your true nature, your divine nature. This power is your energy. When it is blocked, you feel tired and upset. But when your energy flows freely and without obstacles, you are full of strength and capable of achieving any goal. Everyone can feel the movement of energy in their body. Are you ready to see this for yourself right now? I've prepared a practice where, in just 3 minutes, you'll become aware of the state of your energy and be able to activate the inner power that has been blocked for many years. The practice is available for a limited time. Right now, follow the link provided below the video and unlock the incredible source of power within yourself.